Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Joseph Attic, Executive Chairman of ID for Africa, and I'm pleased to welcome you to our 28th livecast. This is part 2 of the Mobile Identity Management and ID4D series. In part 1, we stressed the importance of reforming government telecom policies to lower barriers to mobile adoption by women, the poor, and the vulnerable. This is especially critical since mobile phones are becoming proxies for identity and are indispensable for accessing services. We also explored in detail the experience with birth notification via mobile in 4 African countries. We noted that here also there is a need for a fundamental reform of policies to allow trusted actors to leverage the power of mobile platforms, not only for birth notification, but also for declaration and registration. The message was clear. The mobile platform is underutilized, partly because of outdated legal frameworks. Panelists urged countries to undertake comprehensive reviews and to embrace legal sandboxes to allow for innovations while they work to reform civil registration to take advantage of the mobile revolution. If you have not watched this episode, I urge you to do so. It includes 2 overview keynotes on the impact of mobile on women empowerment and on the mobile adoption trends in Africa. It is certainly worth watching and rewatching. Today, we continue this exciting saga as we venture into the impact of mobile on foundational identity. Once again, we have 4 segments. In the first, we examine the linkage of SIM to NIN, a policy that has been implemented with success in Nigeria and Tanzania. We will look at it from the perspective of both identity authorities and mobile network operators. We will learn how it should be done right from those who have done it. Then in segment 2, we look at Nigeria's experience in leveraging mobile software and mobile apps for enrollment and for identity assertion. We then take an in-depth look at MOSIP's newly developed mobile identity open source platform. And then we have a new feature we call the Innovation Tank. For this segment, we asked researchers to tell us if and how basic phones, as opposed to smartphones, can be used for identity assertion, essentially as verifiable credentials, just like a smart ID card. Stick around to hear what the experts are saying can or cannot be done in this regard. All in all, this promises to be another information-rich and engaging episode. Let me also unveil the lineup for the 3rd episode, where we focus on enabling use cases. We start by looking at mobile biometrics, which are key to enabling use cases. Then we look at how mobile is empowering financial inclusion for the poor. We then examine a case study in humanitarian action, followed by a broad and in-depth discussion on facilitating digital presence, a prerequisite for economic growth in a modern society. So yes, this saga continues with some really timely topics. We'll unveil the lineup for the finale in the next episode. Before we start today's program, I have some more information to share with you about the Augmented General Meeting, AGM, coming up in Marrakesh. But first, let me acknowledge our development partners, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and thank them for their support of our livecasts, which allows us to produce high-quality digital public goods for knowledge sharing and capacity building in identity matters. The entire collection of 28 episodes is on YouTube and is growing, so you can watch and rewatch as you wish. But please remember to like, share, and subscribe. You are helping us grow our reach. Now, I'm pleased to unveil the lineup for the first panel of the AGM in Marrakesh, which takes place on the morning of the opening day. This panel is called the Identity Arena, Deconstructing the Choices for National Programs. We will feature 10 director generals and countries who are actively working on launching and developing further their foundational identity systems. This will be a deep dive panel discussion where I will engage with these leaders to understand the choices that they made and the challenges they had to overcome. And together we will work towards extracting lessons learned that could form the nucleus of best practice recommendations for other African nations. The overarching objective of this 2.5-hour working session will be to look for consensus and divergences as we compare and contrast the ensemble of projects currently under development, projects which in their totality represent nearly $1.5 billion worth of investments in identity systems, covering over 700 million people in 10 countries. This is an absolutely cannot miss session. A comparative analysis of identity systems of this scale and this importance has never been done before anywhere. The audience will have the opportunity to join the conversation by asking questions and sharing their perspectives, concerns, and opinions from the floor. Now, let me respond to the many people who have contacted us asking if they could speak at the AGM. Let me explain. The event has been transformed into an active experience. There will not be passive presentations. To participate, you need to apply to join the working group at one of the 4 workshops. Each working group has a capacity of 30 contributors. You will not be able to give a PowerPoint presentation, but you will be able to participate actively in the discussion and share your experiences and ideas about the theme and topic at hand. The contributors will be noted in any final report that will be issued summarizing the workshop and presented over the livecast medium that follows in 2 weeks after the AGM. We thank the 4 development partners who are chairing the 4 workshops for their active participation. We will open the call for participation in the workshops later in April. So please make sure you are receiving ID for Africa newsletters and that your IT servers do not treat them as spam. Now we're ready to start part 2 of the mobile ID saga. The lineup today features the following contributors in order of appearance. Aliyu Aziz, Director General, CEO, National Identity Management Commission, NIMSI, Nigeria. Edson Guya, Acting Director, ID Management, National Identification Authority, NIDA, Tanzania. Linda Riwa, Consumer Business Unit Director, Vodacom, Tanzania. Shoyinka Shudunke, Chief Information Officer, MTN, Nigeria. Landry Yusuf, Acting Director, Software, NIMSI. Shibizor Onmura, Co-Founder and Executive Director, SeamFix. Ushena Chigbo, Acting Director and Senior Special Assistant to the Director General, NIMSI. Ramesh Narayanan, Chief Technology Officer, MOSIP. Dr. Chris Hicks, Researcher from the Alan Turing Institute. Christian Kassari, Chief Sales Officer from Unix Identity. Taron Mohan, CEO, Next Gen Telesolutions. And Sebastian Codeville, CEO of Kai OS Technologies. Thank you to all the panelists for being with us. We truly appreciate your valuable contributions to this livecast. I look forward to engaging with each of you within the different segments. We're now ready to begin our first segment, which is the policy panel segment that will feature 4 people. Operator, could you please prepare the first panel? Once again, thank you so much for being with us, DJ Aziz, Edson, Linda, and Shoyinka. You are going to represent on this particular panel the views of the identity authorities, as well as the views of the mobile network operators. So basically, before we get into the depth of this session, what I'd like to do is ask first to get a perspective from the identity authorities, ask DJ Aziz and Edson to share with the audience what is this policy that I'm talking about, which was enacted by the telecom regulators of Nigeria and Tanzania, respectively. When was this policy enacted, and what motivated it? So let me start with DJ Aziz.
Well, thank you very much, Chairman. I'm really glad to be here, and greetings to the ID for Africa community, wherever you are. Well, as you know, the policy to register your SIM before you use it has always been there. So it's not really a new thing, but due to the insecurity that we've been having, and therefore government decided that it's high time that we should enforce it. So in most African countries, as you know, we have so many policies, but implementation is always the issue. So the coming up our dynamic minister Pantami and also the security situations that we found ourselves. So he was asked to implement it. So, and we set up a presidential committee that involves the telecom operators and also the NCC, the regulator, and also the Identity Management Commission. And we came up with a new policy that says you need to have your identity before you can utilize your SIM. And if you already have your SIM, then submit your NIN. Then we found out that majority of people that have the SIMs that have been using it, they don't really have the national identification number. Right. So, yes.
So, DJ Aziz, before we continue, let me clarify one point. Majority of African countries actually have some form or another of a SIM registration policy, but most of them, what they do is basically do what we call capture and store. So the mobile network operators simply capture a photo of some identifying document and they store it. What you and Tanzania have done is actually gone beyond that, which is you actually online verified and linked the SIM to the NIN, which has something much deeper, which we are going to explore the implications in a second. So hold on for 1 second. Okay. Could you just mention when was the policy for linking the SIM to the NIN enacted, and when was the deadline for compliance, before I move to Tanzania with the same question?
Well, it was reenacted in December 2020, and people were reminded that at the end of the year, that was 31st December 2020, that their lines will be cut. Therefore, there was a lot of rush, and of course, government listened to people, and then we have been extending it. Right now, the current deadline is this month, 31st of end of this month. And most of the time that the minister will ask us, are there people queuing up to enroll? If we answer in the affirmative, then he asks us, okay, how long do we require to get the NIN ubiquitous? So that is how we got the telcos themselves capturing and also other private sector capturing, but still we still have a gap. So, but security will not also wait for us. So we are coming towards the tail end.
Thank you. So I'll come back to that. Edson, what was the situation in Tanzania with this policy? When was it enacted? What motivated it? And how firm were you with the deadline? Unmute yourself, please. Yes.
Thank you very much. Hello. Thank you very much, Dr. Atik, for opportunity to speak in the ID for Africa livecast regarding the linkage of national ID SIM card registration. In Tanzania, the policy was enacted in 2020, where there is a requirement to link the SIM card with the national ID. The aim is to make sure that the SIM card are issued to a person which was already identified by the government through the National Identification Authority. And the aim is to combat crime and other issues like to be able to give online services to our citizens. So the policy was enacted in 2020. And what we are doing is to capture and validate, because as Dr. Aziz said, the registration of SIM card was capture and store. There's no validation and the authentication of personal information. So what the new policy came in was to do the capture and the validate. And what the mobile operators were required to capture national identification number and the fingerprint, then submit to the national ID system for verification. Once verification is passed, then the personal information, the photo, names, gender, and everything is then supplied to the mobile operator. So this step of authentication, the aim is to make sure SIM given to internet person. So the advantage of this one and what was the success factors for us to enroll about 55 million subscriber base.
Yeah, hold on, Edson. I'm going to come back to that issue. I'm just trying to peel the onion. So we understand that this policy, both in Nigeria and in Tanzania, was actually motivated by security reasons in the beginning. So now let us look at what has the impact of this policy been on the enrollment in the national identity database. So, for example, DJ Aziz, before this policy was really enacted, how many people were in the database and in your Nimsi database, and how many there are today, and how many would you say you added to the database because of this linkage between the SIM and the NIN? And I'll ask the same question to Edson in a minute. So okay, I want to know the impact of this policy.
Thank you very much. When we talk of the impact is really on the rate at which the number of people that we capture monthly. So before the NIN capturing, we were capturing about 500,000 in a month, and that number multiplied by 5 times, and it was continuous. Like throughout last year, it was around 2.5 to 3 million people that we capture every month. Therefore, that is the real impact. So before this same NIN linkage, we had about 40 million, and right now we are at 77 million and still counting. And we also just commenced the World Bank program. So therefore, we expect that because of our population that is very large, we will be moving from the 3 million, average 3 million to about 7-10 million monthly, so that we can capture the whole population.
Excellent. So we see that this policy has had a positive impact on the enrollment rate and the growth of the inclusion into the national identity database and digital identity in Nigeria. So same question, I go to Tanzania before we come back to the network operators. So Tanzania, what was the impact?
The simple registration we are linking the national ID has positive impact on national ID registration. As when we are starting the national registration, the simple registration, enforcement of the simple registration policy, the database of national ID, the NIN, was around 10 million, but now we are talking about 20 million. So it's
doubled it.
Almost double the on our side as well.
Okay, so clearly, I mean, this is the message that we're trying to pass to other countries in Africa, to say your outdated SIM registration policies do nothing. However, if you link it to a national ID and you create a requirement that this is done and verified, there is a positive impact on the inclusion. Now, that raises a question, DJ Aziz. Basically, somebody would say you're creating exclusion if you are not ready to pick up those people who are standing in line to get their NIN. How did you scale up your operations in order to allow for the surge in the enrollment required?
Well, thank you very much. All along we've been working with the World Bank, EU, and also AFD on having an ecosystem approach whereby we allowed the telcos, we allowed private sector, and also the government to really capture the data. So we enabled that, and we are able to have more than 200 agents around, and also the telcos were able to mobilize and buy a lot of equipments that they have given to the agents. So that symbiotic way of working together, that is collaborating together, makes the numbers really grow, rather than waiting for government to buy the equipment, employ people, pay for the logistics. Therefore, in this case, it is a pay-per-play approach, and that is what really helps us to generate these huge numbers.
Do you feel you have the adequate capacity to respond to the ongoing demand for resulting from SIM registration and other drivers? Do you feel you have the capacity, or you're still building capacity?
Well, we are. I believe that we are still building the capacity. I believe that it was in Namibia that we discussed that for every 50,000 people, you need an enrollment center. And that time we were computing that we need like 4,000 centers, it will be okay. Right now we have more than 18,000 centers, and it is still like a drop in the ocean. So the population size really matters, and that is just talking about the Nimsi system. We have the BVN, we have the private sector, we have the telcos like MTN having large number of system in place. So we are building it up, and we believe that until when we get the large number N, then the residual, even the residual is a large number. You remember that in Nigeria, we add more than 7 million people, children every year. So, and that is also an assignment to do.
Okay. So you feel you are building even more capacity, but anybody that wants an in today is not being excluded. You're able to give them an in if they show up, or in a convenient manner, and therefore they can get a SIM. And you mentioned 7, they can get up to 7 SIMs linked. Yes. Is that correct?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Edson, same situation. How did you end up meeting the surge? Your deadline was a lot shorter, but of course, your number of the targets, the population target, was smaller relative to Nigeria. So how did you meet the surge?
In order to make sure that all eligible persons are included in the national ID system, what we did was first is to operationalize our district offices, and also to make sure that district offices are connected to our data centers. So once a person is enrolled at our district offices, then automatically within a few days, then he will be able to get a. And another approach was we did so-called field registration, because the requirement of the national ID for SIM card registration forces NIDA and the government to put more money to encourage field registration, so that for those citizens who are poor and cannot reach our district offices can be enrolled and then given the NIN. And also for dissemination of number, we worked closer with the mobile operator to send push SMS for those people with NIN, so that to reduce the time and also to reduce the effort to give the NIN. So this was the approach which we used to encourage. Also, there was a mass awareness in television, in local community radios, and everywhere, to encourage people the importance of SIM registration, the importance of national ID, so that they can enroll and get their national ID numbers. So this was the approach.
I've noted you used also very, very famous influencers on the internet and bloggers who were helping you get the message out of the importance. So DJ Aziz, have you been connecting with bloggers and influencers on the internet as well?
Well, sure that we have champions, and we are still working on even having more, because of the World Bank project just started. So we have that strategy to have most of our bloggers, our opinion molders, and also dailies, and also television, radio, and also going to the. So we have a lot of program for the communication, and we still think that the communication is not yet there, because we believe that we will not stop until the last person is enrolled.
Okay, let us, we won't stop, but we'll pause for a second. I'd like to pause, and I'd like to switch to the perspective of the mobile network operators, and I'll come back to you both in a second. I want to see how the mobile network operators saw this policy when it was enacted, what was the impact on their operations, and how do they see it now. Then we will talk step by step about a new partnership that looks like potentially emerging between these two major actors, the identity authorities and the mobile network operators. So let me ask the mobile network operators, starting with you, Linda. Were the mobile network operators in your country prepared to handle the SIM to the NIN linkage, or was this a surprise that created a certain burden on your operations and you had to basically quickly try to deal with it as a crisis, sort of a firefighting drill? So speak about how it came about in your country, and then I'll come back to MTN in a second.
Hey, thank you, Dr. Atik. So came in as a surprise, and in terms of the timelines, I would say. So just 2 years prior to implementing biometric registration, we had changed, or the regulator had changed the conditions or the number of IDs that we can accept for SIM card registration. So initially we had any ID could be used to register, but then we moved to 5 IDs, and it was a whole huge exercise to make sure that we re-register our entire customer base in those 5 allowed identity cards. But then 2 years down the line, just as we finished that exercise, then biometric registration came into play. And I would say it came in as a surprise a bit, because one, we had just invested a lot in doing that similar exercise in the 2 years that had just wrapped up. But then this meant that we had to change our platforms. We had to, relook at our registration devices. There was a lot of investment that had to be done for us to be compliant, but the timelines as well were not as friendly, because we did a pilot between January and May, and then so we were told to start implementing from May 2019 to December 2019. So those timelines are really forced us, one, to spend or to rather incur some costs that were not planned for. But then at the same time, we had to be more creative as mobile operators. We stopped competing and started collaborating to make sure that we were able to complete the biometric registration in time. Okay, hold on, Linda. I want to go to Shionka. How was the situation in Nigeria? How did the mobile network operators react to this new requirement of linkage?
And thanks very much, Dr. Joseph. Look, I think like Linda explained, our story is not too far off from what Linda just explained right now. In Nigeria, I think a little bit different from Tanzania. We had gone through the biometric phase. So there was the NCC regulation around subscriber registration. So we had that subscriber registration process in place, of which we had gone through investing into biometric devices, ensuring that registration points were all over the country. So that huge investment had been done. What came in with the Nimsi one was a bit of a change, which I think mandated every one of us to now enforce the Nimsi, the NIN number in there, and that was something you would have thought was not possible in these parts of the world. But I mean, it was a bold, very bold requirement from Nimsi, and we all, like Linda said, had to stop competing as well, come up into an industry discussion, put up a forum together, put up the infrastructure, put up the architecture together with Nimsi. And apart from probably challenges today around probably the scale and the mainly the scale that is required, I think we're pretty much there.
Sriyanka, you said something very interesting. You said that nobody would have believed that this could be done. I mean, is it that people did not take this seriously as a deadline, did not take the fact that they're going to lose their phone subscription, did not believe the government had the ability to force people? I mean, why was this a skepticism that this could be done?
I mean, if you look at the requirements of what needed to be done, now this was taken, it was taking that registration just away from what was controlled within our ecosystem. Now it was taking that registration to a real-time validation with the Nimsi database. I mean, that was a huge step. Yeah, the sort of architecture, the sort of infrastructure that was required to be able to carry that out. A lot of people would have thought, look, this is going to take a bit of time, but I think the entire industry and with Nimsi, I think that was that we all came together and we pulled that through. Still a bit of challenges, but I think we're on the right track.
Now, DJ Aziz, you mentioned, obviously, in addition to the verification that is being done because of the requirement that you verify each NIN and the SIM linkage, are the mobile network operators also registrars for you? Have they been licensed to actually perform enrollment? If somebody shows up, doesn't have a NIN, are they able to do an enrollment for you?
Yes, thank you very much. Yes. All of them have been automatically licensed. Very few of them participated, but the minister, in his usual way, automatically licensed all of them. And I want to say, because there are also questions on the screen, that what is the percentage? So far, Nimsi's accumulated enrollment is 57 million. The front-end partners have registered 17 million, part of, and the MNOs 2 million. So about 20 million from the front-end partners, 17 million comes from the front-end partners, and the MNOs directly enroll 2 million. But even the 17 million too, there's hand of the MNOs behind, because some of them, they buy the equipment and give to the front-end partners to capture.
So that's quite interesting to have the statistic on the dashboard. Edson, do we know anything like that in Tanzania? What would you say? Are the mobile network operators licensed to be registrars, or you're the only one doing the registration, but they do the authentication?
Thank you, Dr. Tiki. In case of Tanzania, we do not delegate the issue of registration. So all registration is done by government through National Identification Authority, which is NIDA, and all the authentication and verification is done by government. So for us, it's a different case. We didn't delegate anything. Registration and the authentication we are doing ourselves as a government.
So both models work, and the ecosystem model, which is implemented in Nigeria, and then the essentially centralized model implemented in Tanzania. It really depends on the fact patterns of your country, but both of you have achieved success in getting more enrollment into the national ID. Let's continue with this discussion, still with the mobile network operators. I want to ask Sriyanka and then Linda on the impact on your business practices and workflow. Obviously, you had to buy new equipment and software. How much was this of an added burden as an investment? Did you have to shut down and then retrain people? I mean, talk about the impact on operations.
Thanks, Dr. Joseph. Look, in our case, I think we were first of all mandated to stop registration so that we could meet the new regulation and the requirements coming from Nimsi then. But apart from that, we had to change the entire process of registration, which now was going to include a real-time validation to the Nimsi database, just to ensure that the person registering has a NIN number that has been validated by Nimsi. So that requires a bit of change and a bit of work for us to do internally. And then I think what the industry must also recognize is this is a crucial part of our business. That registration, it is the onboarding of new subscribers onto our entire base in there. So it's important that we get this right, and it's important that it works not just for a moment, but it works continuously on a day-to-day basis. So this is the most crucial part of our processes. They need to get this right. So the need for us to step back, close everything that we were doing previously, ensure that we put together a working process based on a solid architecture. I think that we had to do with the collaboration of Nimsi. And when we opened our gates for the first day to do the registration, teething issues, but I think together we go through these teething issues on a daily basis.
Linda, characterize for us the impact on the mobile network operators in Tanzania, specifically Vodacom also.
Yes, so similar to Nigeria, I think in terms of the platform, making sure that we are able to verify registration real time with NIDA, that had to happen. But then at the same time, sourcing of devices. So all of the registration devices in the industry were not biometric, they were not compatible with biometric registration. So as Vodacom, we invested over 20,000 registration devices, but we also worked very closely with other MNOs and created a consortium where we bought joint, like 25,000 joint devices as operators. But apart from that, our agents that do these registrations, we had to re-onboard them with the new regulation. So even our channel was at risk at that point in time. So we had to re-onboard them, then retrain them, and give them new tools to be able to start doing biometric registration. But then over and above that, I think one of the other unexpected costs that came into play is they were not going to re-register our customer base for free. So we then had to incentivize on a daily basis per transaction for that to happen. And the integration that we currently have with NIDA, it's one that as operators, we have to also pay per click. So we do real-time validation, but then there's cost implementation of that. And I think one last thing is we had to create task force across the country to be able to, in that short period of time, to re-register, for example, Vodacom, 15 million customers to be registered in that short period of time. Luckily, I think as Edson said, awareness for us was quite high, and the president was driving that awareness.
Now, obviously, there's a question on everybody's mind. What happened to those that did not register? What was the impact on the customers and potential customers? Did you cancel the subscription? Did you lose business in the short term?
Yes, definitely. So the deadline, so we had a deadline, the initial deadline of 31st December 2020, and the president extended that to the 20th of January 2019, then 20th of January 2020. On that day, we had to bar customers. In Vodacom alone, we barred around 3 million customers. I believe the industry number is about 8 million. So you multiply that, I think, with an ARPU of around 1.7 US dollars, it's huge in terms of Tanzanian shillings, billions of money. And over time, of course, we recovered some of those customers, but the recovery rate was very low. So out of the 3 million customers that we lost, we were only able to recover 27% of that. So the impact was massive.
Okay, Shionka, how would you characterize the impact on the network operators in Nigeria?
Look, we haven't come to that point yet where we will have to cancel all the subscribers that have not met that requirement yet. But if that were to happen, I think the impact is going to be catastrophic as well. I think looking at the percentage of the registration the registrations that we've done right now, based on the new requirements, I don't want to drop the figures right now, because we're a listed company. Yeah, but quite catastrophic if we were to get to that point. And well, it is an avenue and an opportunity to talk to the regulators as well, because of the sort of challenges that we still have to go through together as an industry around capacity challenges, fine-tuning the processes just to ensure that we capture as much people as possible. So we haven't gotten to that point yet.
I mean, in a way, the mobile network operators have contributed in a meaningful way to the development of the national identity ecosystem in the respective countries, because your investment has really led to significant results in that regard. In a minute, we'll come back and see how you will get an upside from having done that. So let me go back to the identity authorities. I mean, DJ Aziz, obviously, you've seen your partners. They have really had to comply at a major cost and a loss of some of their business. How do you think the government should be cooperating or compensating the mobile network operators or recognizing their contribution in this important regard? Is there anything you can do in this partnership to make it such that the mobile network operators in other countries see this as an opportunity and not as a burden?
Well, thank you very much. I believe that we all live in an environment, and we all want the environment to be safe so that we can thrive our own business. So the overriding things, when we started, we said, is to really combat crime and due to security of the nation, and therefore there's that understanding and also the teamwork, and also, as someone just said there, about partnership and ecosystem partnership, which ID4Africa has been known with. So it's that partnership that really drives it. So the security of the nation comes before the economics. So as we all know, so that is why it is a teamwork. It is a collaborative work between the government and also the operators. And as you can see, that the government too has been very sensible and sensitive to in the sense that it has been pushing the deadline, because there were people on the queue. But I believe that it will reach a point whereby government will draw the line, as my colleague says, Shoinka, that is when the impact will start measuring the impact, but there's no much impact for now. It's just forgiveness.
Yeah. Actually, let us look at the potential upside from the perspective of the mobile network operators. Now you have clean databases of customers. Don't you think you are going to be able to offer them new services or new products? You lower your risk, and therefore you can offer new products. I mean, can you, Linda first, and then Shriyanka, talk to us about how do you see the potential for new products? Yes, you made an investment in the short term, but in the long run, if you have a clean database of really verifiable identities, maybe we can move away from prepaid SIMs to something else.
Certainly, Dr. Atik. I think, first of all, for us, where we are now, I think I would commend the collaboration that we had both from NIDA, the government, and TCRA. So as much as we had a big impact, it would have been worse if we didn't have that. And I agree with you, there's a lot of opportunity with the current registration in terms of us understanding our customers better. We used to have a lot of frauds, especially on the mobile money front, that we've seen that come down significantly. But then just in terms of really understanding our customers, in terms of, having the accurate information in terms of their age groups, their location and whatnot, I think it puts us in a position to offer the right products for our customers, but also address the marginalized segments of or communities in terms of different products. For example, financial inclusion for women. We are able now to identify women and be more and become more deliberate or focused in terms of the services that we want to push to these segments, and the rather tailor-made treatment for these segments. So it brings a lot of opportunities. As hard as it was, I believe it was a journey worth taking.
Okay. Shrinka, do you think you are in the process of building new product and service offerings?
Look, I'm re-echoing Linda and the DG's views in here. While this whole process might have been painful, but I think the benefits out of it, I think we cannot overemphasize. With my experience in this industry and where we started off with data, with subscriber data, you'll see a lot of that data were a bit subjective. And there was something the whole industry struggled with, most especially here in Africa, which is the one account. A customer might pick, or a subscriber might pick 3 phones, but it was difficult to be able to link these phones into one customer, to understand that one subscriber owned this phone. I think the Nimsi or the NIN number has just brought this into something that is it's usable right now. Yeah. So this is very rich information right now, being able to link these numbers into one person. In the past, we were all looking at using an account number. But when you have an account number, how do you now drive that intelligence to understand that these numbers belong to, they should all be grouped under this account? And then with what Linda has just said right now, in terms of proper segmentation, so we have that real information that you can actually place a bet on that. Yeah, this is the diversity of this segment, or this is the diversity of that person, and you can make meaningful information to come out of that. And of course, with the sort of algorithms that exist today, it's just it's a gold mine.
Excellent. I'll come back to this gold mine because it also raises concerns. 1 second. Let me go to Edson. Edson, unlike Nigeria, which doesn't have yet a final sort of deadline, you've had your deadline, it's passed, and it's almost, you are now in full-scale operation. And by all means, people would judge your experience as that of success. And so what would you attribute your success to? What led your success? What were the factors that led you to success?
Thank you, Dr. Atik. The factor for success was first the leadiness, government leadiness in terms of the system, because single registration involve a lot of transactions. So as the government, we are supposed to be ready in order to accommodate all transactions, because this was a real-time registration. So readiness in terms of the system, and readiness in terms of registration number, and also the registration centers. So this was success factor number 1. The second one was engagement, stakeholder engagement, because before we go to a full-fledged biometric secret registration, we engage all our stakeholders, including the sectorial ministries, also mobile network operators, TCRIs, regulator, and everything in line which was supposed to be included, we include. And so if there is any issue, we sit together and we find a solution. So the exercise was really we engage everybody to succeed. And also registration was backed up with the framework, legal framework, which requires subscribers to register with the national ID, and which is biometrically registered. So all these 3 was a major success factor. And the last one was, as I said earlier, was a massive awareness campaign and sensitization. So all this, we use all the channels, to make sure the correct information reach to the people. So this was the major factor, success factor for the SIM registration in Tanzania.
Okay, but I mean, the fact is, people took it seriously. I mean, if they didn't take the registration seriously, then they would have waited till the last minute. So it's good that we have that. DJ Aziz, are we on the cusp of a new era where there is potential partnership not just for now, but a durable long-term partnership between the identity authorities and an important service provider, which is the mobile network operators. How do you see that partnership evolving, and how would you help each other?
Well, thank you very much. I believe that based on the meetings that we've been having, and also as has been said, that the telcos feel that that the identity registration really help them to remove a lot of fraudulent transactions that has been happening, and also that they believe that they can now apply collaborative filtering methods to do the build recommendation systems for future products and services, and also that since almost everything also now runs on the mobile, therefore you have the network and you know the users of the network, then it means that we should be able to build a lot of products and new services, and also for the security agencies too, the ways and methods of which the law enforcement also will also change. And so there's a lot of changes that we look in the future, but the benefits will be for the users and also the environment that it will create, so that there will be a lot of innovations. And I saw someone ask about also enrollment using the face. All these we have the contactless, which is going to be discussed later. So there's a lot of innovation that the government allows us to do. And working with the telecom operators, I believe that we can do much in the future. Thank you.
Now, Soyinka, you mentioned something called the gold mine, which is data. Now everybody talks about data as the gold mine, and the quality of the data as the purity of the gold, etc. How can we assure the public that their privacy and data is protected when now they're passing through you, because you're verifying them, and you're verifying them against the source of truth, which is the Nimsi and the NIDA databases? So that's for both of you. We can start with Linda. How do you deal with privacy of people? And then Soyinka, if you can give me a perspective on how to assure that the gold mine is not abused.
Thank you, Dr. Atik. I think for Tanzania, first of all, the policy, or rather the contract that we have with NIDA ensures that customer information is protected. So we do not store some of the information, including fingerprint. So our customers are secured from that front. But over and above that, for Vodacom, we take customer privacy very seriously. And we have audits and all that. So customers' safety and information is at the top of our priority. So even as we analyze all the information that we have, it's not at customer level, it's aggregated information. So all of that information is masked. So at no point in time are we able to, pull information of, let's say, Dr. Atik and analyze it as a customer. So the customer is always protected, and the security of our customer always comes first in everything that we do.
Okay. Soyinka, does the country have a data protection law that you're complying with, or are you going at it from international standards?
So I'll answer the question in two ways, Doctor. So for us, first of all, as MTN, a global company, I think we're mandated, first of all, to ensure data privacy. We keep data privacy sacrosanct. I think the second thing as well is from the place where we operate. So while the laws of data protection is not that, it has not been fully approved yet, but there's a data privacy law, which is the Nigerian Data Protection Regulation, which is an exact copy of the GDPR. But as an industry or as an operator, an MTN operator, data anonymization, I think, is what we deal with. You know, we don't deal with the specifics of who the person is or what the person is doing, and encryptions are put in place at every point. Yeah, at every point of our data storage. You know, even the biggest database that we have, which is business intelligence, which is a coalition of all data that comes from various sources. I think encryption is mandated in there down to the operational level of the people that manage this sort of database. So I understand how the public might look at these things in terms of, oh, they have this amount of data that they can use, but it is really about anonymization, looking for patterns to address certain issues and not looking at specifics around people. Right. Yeah.
Okay, I understand. So you're basically using the data in aggregate form to develop insights, not necessarily to target specific individuals. Neither one of your companies would sell your data or access to it to a third party. Is that correct?
That's spot on, Doctor.
That is correct.
Yeah. And look at trust is the bane of I think the companies that we operate in. When the trust is gone from the subscriber base, from your shareholders, then the company ceases to exist.
DJ Aziz, I want to give you the last question, and for that I would say, looking at our brothers and sisters all over Africa who are heads of the identity authorities, who are trying to build their enrollment and build their databases, would you look them in the eye and say, this is a policy you should do, because otherwise you will be missing out on the opportunity of building your database rapidly?
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I believe what you have said is very right, that I will ask my colleagues to step aside and also look at the mirror, and then ask yourself, by the time that as the time is ticking, what legacy are you going to bring up? Therefore, it needs innovation and also experimentation, and coming up with things that are suitable for your own particular environment. And we believe that every crime scene leaves something that you can track. And in this 21st century, most of the crimes that we have seen, that there is a SIM number that has been left along that crime, and therefore we need to know who the person, otherwise then other people will be attacking us from outside our own shores. We may not really understand. So it's a good policy to adopt, and we should do it right now.
Right, and in fact, it is, as is the case with any policy that leads to outcomes, this was not simple to implement, but it's worth it. The outcome, the result at the end of the day is worth it. And I remind people that there was the policy of linking the banking number to the national identity number, the BVN to the NIN. That led to a certain level of development. So we do recommend that the banking number be associated with the national identity number. And now we are very excited to see that Nigeria and Tanzania, both countries, have successfully implemented this other tranche of policy, which is the SIM being linked to the NIN, and therefore accelerate the inclusion. There are so many questions online. I would like to ask the panelists if you don't mind taking the time to answer them. I think there's a lot of interest. I have many more myself, but unfortunately we're over time, and I can only say this has been a passionate discussion, and I thank all four of you for your insights and contributions. I think any country that is interested in implementing such policy, please get in touch with us, and we'll put you in touch with the right people who will give you the testimonies in Nigeria and in Tanzania. This is lesson worth learning and following. Thank you so much. Operator, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Operator, please prepare the next panel. in this next panel, we are going to continue to look at the impact of mobile on foundational identity. And here we're going to look at the role of mobile software and also mobile apps. So mobile software and mobile apps in the role in the foundational identity. We're going to look at Nigeria's experience. Very interesting. You're going to hear this is not just mobile software and also apps to understand what can you do with mobile to bring in better engagement and to accelerate the enrollment by reaching out to more people. Now, I believe we have a third member of the panel. Operator, could you please make sure we've got that individual, Uche, with us?
Yes, we're trying to reach Uche.
Right, Uche. Okay, excellent. So all of you are here. I'm going to start with Landry Yusuf. Landry, clearly what the DG talked about, which is the SIM linkage with the NIN, required the development of faster enrollment and more accessible enrollment platforms. So that means that there has been, it's not the fixed model where you go to an office and you do that. Talk to us about the strategy that the software group that you administer in Nimsi had to do, and how it partnered with SIMFIX in order to develop a critical mobile software. So talk to us and then lead us into the SIMFIX short presentation. And then we come back to Uche to understand another branch of the development which had to do with the mobile app. You're on mute.
Yeah, good afternoon, Dr. Atik and your team. And I say good afternoon to my DG, who we passionately call the digital DG. As you can see, we are moving into mobile app, mobile software, which are all attributes of digitalization of systems. Good afternoon also to other participants. Bring you greetings from Lagos, Nigeria. Yes, we, as you rightly said, Dr. Ati, we know the conventional way of capturing individuals. We use the standard desktop applications, whereby all dedicated enrollment centers, whereby people go and get captured. You capture their demographic information, and by extension, you capture their biometrics. Right. So, with the rapid development in Nigeria, and DG has rightly said, 7 million citizens being added every single day, every single year. So we need to be innovative, and that brought about experiencing or introducing the mobile software. In this case, which is the Android solution. Okay, and as a government agency, we can't do everything by ourselves. We really needed to partner with private companies and individuals. That led us into bringing SIMFIX on board. And I can tell you, Dr. Asik, since SIMFIX developed the Android solution, we went through a lot of back and forth to make sure that the standards are met, to make sure that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. We've actually covered a major milestone because we see that with the introduction of the front-end partners, adopting the World Bank ecosystem policy, we've been able to cover and enroll more citizens across Nigeria. Nigeria is a big country, as you know. We have a lot of places that are not digitally connected. So sometimes you need to reach out to those areas. Also, cost is a factor. With the Android system, it's a little bit less expensive than dedicated Windows that we know. So we've been able to achieve a lot of milestones, registering more people and bringing more people on board. I think SIMFIX, who is here, Chibuzo, who is the co-founder of SIMFIX, will run us through a presentation of how it started, what they have done so far. So I think it will be an exciting moment for everyone. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Landry. Shibizor, could you please launch your presentation and guide us through how this partnership advanced?
Sure. Good afternoon, Dr. Atik, and everyone on board. Good afternoon, Landry. Good afternoon, my DG. and everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today with you. Yes, like Mr. Larry just explained, Nimsi engaged Simfix to work with her to come up with a solution that will help Nimsi reach out. So going beyond the offices that Nimsi had around the nation, but going into the hinterland, to riverine areas, down into the streets, to markets, to places where you have high density of people. But Nimsi going out to be able to meet people, not just people coming to meet Nimsi, and even enabling Nigerians in the diaspora to make it easier for them to also acquire their name. And so because of we currently service the telcos as well, we also help the telcos with their SIM registration. So it was a natural segue for us into moving over and also providing the mobile name enrollment solution for Nimsi. So one important thing that we had to consider was costs, like Mr. Larry said, and on the other hand as well, security. So it's a fine balance between making sure that you're able to provide something that is low cost, but at the same time, high security. We ensure that the application, which you can see on the screen, on the mobile form factor there, takes security very seriously. We ensure we encrypt the data that is on the device, and the app is hosted in Nimsi, not on the App Store. That way, Nimsi is able to have significant control over who has the application and how it is distributed. Now, what does the mobile enrollment solution do? It's pretty simple. It's similar to what the desktop application does today, which is number one, doing a pre-enrollment check to confirm that whoever shows up for capture. So imagine the agent goes to a market, and in the marketplace, he's able to engage with Nigerians there and wants to do a capture. They do an enrollment check to confirm that the person does not already have a name. And if the person doesn't have a name, then a capture is done for the person. The demographics, which is basic data like your name, the date of birth, and all that is captured. Then your biometrics, essentially your fingerprints and your face, and then also any supporting documents are required. And then your name is generated, a name slip, an enrollment slip is generated and printed and given to you. And then subsequently, when your name is now generated by Nimsi, then a name slip is given to you with a number on it, which is actually the core token here, the NIN number. If you think about it, if you're with this solution, Nimsi was going to empower agents to work with her to go to the field. And when you're empowering agents to go to the field to do work for you, you now have to start thinking about quality. And so something that was very key to us in this was how to enforce high quality data capture at the field, at the point of capture, so that you don't go back to the office and then see a lot of dirty data has flown into the system. So starting from the demographics that are being captured, we do lots of quality checks from regular expressions to make sure that the names, the phone numbers, the email, every information captured is valid. You don't want agents or anybody trying to put in irrelevant information at that layer. And this doesn't just stop with demographics. It also flows to the biometrics. So when you look at the face, in the past, in our early life providing systems like this, we have had situations where people try to scam or game the system by utilizing a picture rather than capturing a live human being. So we have lots of checks at the front end to make sure that anybody being captured is a human being. So we have the concept of a liveliness check that makes sure that the person that is in front of the camera is actually interact, maybe blink or smile, and the software is able to detect that indeed it's a human being captured, not just a picture or something else. And then we also make sure that the picture is of high quality, because why are we enrolling? The point of the enrollment is so that in future, verifications can be done against that ID, and thus transactions can be enabled. And so we also ensure that the image being captured meets up to all the necessary quality standards from ICAO. The image is not blurry, the image is bright enough, the background is clear, and all sorts of checks are done real time at the front end. And these checks happen even while the device is offline. So it doesn't require any connection to the backend to do that. The same thing flows to the fingerprint. We also do quality checks to make sure that at the point of capture of your fingerprints, of the person's individual fingerprints, we ensure that the right quality is captured. So there's also another standard where we adhere to the NFIQ standard to make sure that the quality of the images, the fingerprints being captured, meets a certain minimum threshold. There's no dirty or noisy data getting into the system. And once all that is done, the information is then wrapped and synchronized to the backend in a secure manner. The data is encrypted. So during transport, we usually secure the data while in the system, while in the device, in transport, and then also in memory. So the information captured is securely encrypted with RSA, and then it is also shipped over to the backend. We have a VPN connection between all devices and the Nimsi backend for security purposes as well as HTTPS. And like we mentioned earlier, cost was a factor for us. So from the design, from the onset, we determined that the Android solution was going to be device agnostic. What this meant was that it was going to support a myriad of devices. And so from Android tablets to Android phones to all-in-one devices, we have devices that have been manufactured to have every component in it, like the SimFix One device at the bottom left that has the tablet, the fingerprint scanner to one side, and the printer to the other. And we support different types of fingerprint scanners. And as time goes on, we keep adding more and more support for more devices. The tablet, as you can see on the screen, is able to connect to the fingerprint reader via the cable that you see on the screen there. So technically, an agent can walk into the field with the tablet in his hand, the Kojak 5.0 in his pocket, and a cable. And he's mobile enough to go and do an enrollment. He doesn't need to carry a desk. He doesn't need to carry huge computers or anything of the sort. And we have ensured that all the devices that we certify for the capture process are low power rated, which means that they are able to draw minimal power from the tablet during the capture process, and then therefore the tablet can last for longer while the agents are in the field. Of course, we have minimum specifications for the operating system and the devices. Of course, the focus here has been on Android because this is Africa, and in Africa, the proliferation of devices you have out there are mostly Android devices. And because one of the objectives was to empower partners, so Nimsi wanted to empower her front-end partners to be able to go to the field. Many of them already have devices. Many of them already have heavy investments in infrastructure, just like even the MNOs that spoke in the panel before, just before this. And therefore, the more devices you're able to support in their existing ecosystem, the cheaper the overall cost of ownership. So we employ a bring your own device scheme as long as it meets the minimum specs. On the left, you can see a capture process being done for someone, and that is what is in use there is the all-in-one tablet. So the facial capture is being done, and once that concludes, then the fingerprints will be captured. You can see the scanner at the top of the device over there. Of course, with this, we have been able to help Nimsi bridge a significant gap. Because we are able to enforce the same level of quality that they have in their offices with the desktop solution at the field, Nimsi is now able to securely go to the field and acquire as many enrollments as possible, bringing it closer to the common man. The agents that are employed, we also have a process for training and screening the enrollment agents that the front-end partners of Nimsi bring to participate in the scheme. And all of them also have names as well. What that does for us is we are able to track and trace at any point in time if there are any issues that occur during the process. And of course, for every enrollment that is done, we have loads of metadata that is captured from the device. What device did the capture? At what time did the capture happen? How long did it take to do this capture? Were there any issues? Maybe they tried fingerprint twice before it was successful, or they tried this. That way we are learning, because this is a continuous learning process for us as well as for Nimsi. And with all the data that we acquire about the enrollment environment and the enrollment process, we are able to keep improving and improving upon the solution. We also have offline capture capabilities. That way, an agent can go to the field, and even if there is no network, or for whatever reason, there is a backend issue that causes connectivity not to occur, he can still go ahead and do the capture. And when he's done, whenever he comes back and he gets into an area where there is network coverage, then it is able to synchronize back to the backend. That way, we are reducing the friction at the front end with the customer. And this, like the panel spoke earlier, we also have the NIN enrollment to SIM registration linkage, which we also support as a company, and therefore we also support the telcos to upgrade their systems to also perform the SIM NIN linkage. And what has been the outcome of this? Since we went live in April last year, of course, with a phased rollout, first with a small number of front-end partners, and then we keep increasing the number of front-end partners as we go along. Today, we have about 90 or more front-end enrollment partners of Nimsi. Some of them are in country here, some of them are in various countries in the diaspora. So we have front-end partners in the US, in UK, in various countries that are now servicing Nigerians in the diaspora. In country here, we have the MNOs and many other companies as well that are working with Nimsi, including even other government parastatals, working with Nimsi to spread the reach to service Nigerians. Today, we have over 7,000 agents, and both the NIN enrollment and the mobile enrollment and the SIM linkage processes together have led to over 20 million increase in the NIN enrollments over the last year. What have been our learnings from the experience so far? There's a saying that the Japanese have, that's called Kaizen, which is continuous improvement. That has been the process that Nimsi and Simfis have undertaken. For us, this is a journey, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And therefore, each day, we learn from the experiences of our partners, we learn from what we see in the field, and we continually improve. Something we have realized is essential is offline capability. It is not an option, it is mandatory, it's essential, particularly in Africa, if you are going to really be able to service people anywhere, anytime. Something we've also realized is that effective engagement between everybody, the citizens, the ecosystem, is really critical for success. Citizens need to understand why the agent standing in front of them with the mobile phone is actually a valid person and not somebody that attempted to steal their identity. For those who are already used to seeing NIN enrollment happening in offices, they need to understand that this person in front of them is also part of the ecosystem. And so all sorts of engagement, all sorts of education of the public needs to keep happening. Regulatory policies that aid, because it's one thing to have the software in place, it's another thing to also have the policies that drive people to want to come and do this. So policies like the SIM NIN linkage are critical. Policies like ensuring that the international passport, when issued, needs to happen with a NIN are critical for ensuring that more and more people come out and utilize this software, this infrastructure that has been put in place by the government. Of course, supporting various mobile devices is key as well, because for us, we decided not to go the route of having particular requirements in terms of devices, just this device can work. We realized that would be too expensive. But by supporting a myriad of device form factors and device types, we have been able to make it accessible for all. It's also very important to have highly flexible software and infrastructure. Over the course of the last year, we have been on this. We have had to change at certain points in time, for instance, the demographic data being captured. So the ease at which you are able to make the changes to the system and cascade it down to the agents is very critical. Also, the ease at which the infrastructure and the backend is able to scale is really important. For instance, in this project, we have had to, together with Nimsi, work on scaling not just the software, but also the backend infrastructure to support the huge increase in number of agents, and by inference, the number of people being serviced. And of course, it goes without saying that security is really critical. It's not an afterthought, it's something that has to be on the front burner. And at every point in time, we're working together to continually improve and to monitor the solution to make sure that we are one step ahead. So yes, that's it. Okay. A very high-level summary from me. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you. Shibuzo, a couple of questions. The first one is clearly for you. I want to be explicit in saying that the mobile Android enrollment software uses an external scanner. Are you also considering the use of the mobile-only camera to capture the fingerprints? Do you have experience in that? Is that supported in your software, or which is, by the way, something we will discuss in the next episode? But the mobile Android software is supposed to work with the scanner. Is that correct?
Yes. So the mobile Android software today works with the scanner. There are ongoing engagements with Nimsi to pilot also the capture with the camera of the device, but that's a different conversation at the moment.
Right, and there isn't yet FBI and NIST validation of the type of accuracy for enrollment. For matching of authentication, that's a different story. But for enrollment, I think staying within the standard is a good thing, because you only have a chance to capture the individual fingerprints once. And so we want to make sure that the highest quality fingerprints are there until we are confident that there is an interoperability, which is not yet demonstrated. So we'll have that discussion in the next episode. So another question for you: when you're enrolling, you're just capturing and storing and then forwarding at another time to the Nimsi backend, or is your software sending in real time and returning message from the server?
Okay, so thank you for that question. The first thing we do is first a verification to make sure that the person being captured doesn't already exist within the database, so we don't waste the person's time or hours. Because due to the linkage of the BVN, for instance, with the NIN, it's possible that there are people that have NIN already and they are not aware of it. So the first step we do is a verification to make sure that you don't already have a NIN. And if you do, then you are informed appropriately. But after that, when we do a capture, the way the system is designed is that it's asynchronous. So we don't need a connection to the backend system in order for you to complete the process successfully. We will service you capture and you get your enrollment slip. We, at that instance, attempt to sync the data to the backend. But if the backend information is not there or there's no connectivity issue, we store it in the device and we keep trying whenever we get connectivity. But that does not affect the citizen.
Let me understand. So in your workflow, you actually capture the fingerprints first and check against the database to ensure they're not already there?
Yes. So we capture the fingerprint and the demographic and maybe your phone number or your surname. And with that, we're able to check. Then if you're not there, then we do your capture and store, and we continue to sync until the sync is successful. When the sync is successful, we wipe it off the device.
Right. And when will the person be contacted with their NIN number?
So typically, as the scale out of the number of agents had been happening over the last few months, typically the service time, SLA time of Nimsi used to be 24 to 48 hours, and that increased a bit. But in recent weeks or in recent months, Nimsi has been able to scale up again their backend infrastructure. And that time has come back down, and we are now operating within the 24 to 48 hour window for the generation of NIN.
But the person will be contacted not by the agent in the field, but by the back-end server through a SMS message or something like that?
Okay, currently, no. The agent is the person that manages that communication. But there's an upgrade on the way right now, because today the SMS, the phone number and the email are optional fields. Not everybody provides that. And you're also capturing people in the field. Some of them are farmers, some are children or teenagers. Not all of them have this. So it's optional. However, there's the upgrades that are coming up soon are going to enable that backend reach out where that information exists. Yes.
But does that mean that the agent that did the enrollment is the one that's communicating to them that their NIN is ready? How do they communicate to them? It's 48 hours later.
Yes, so typically when they do the capture, they are informed, even if it's on the NIN slip or they are on the enrollment slip, and they are informed also that it takes this amount of time. So they check back. After about 48 hours, They check back and then they just do a search. Your NIN is ready, your slip is printed and given to you.
Okay, I understand. Okay, we've got one last question for you. There are others, but we don't have time. I want to move on to Uche. Apart from the new enrollments, does the Android app also support updates? If somebody has updates to their status, address, whatever else in the fields, do you support updates?
Oh, sure. The app supports it, and it is privilege based. It's role and privilege based. So NIMSI manages who has the privilege to do that. Obviously, not all agents that go to the field.
Not all agents.
Even the privilege to do that.
Okay. Chibuzor, thank you so much. Very, very interesting application and success and progress. I think having enrollment stations being shrunk to your pocket instead of having these big kits that they used to be logged around in difficult conditions is definitely a major progress towards outreach and being able to go anywhere, anytime and do the enrollment. Thank you so much. We're going to continue on the subject of NIMSI's experience with mobile. Now we focus on a mobile app, and Uche is going to give us an update on what are you doing with the mobile app and how is this helping the engagement with your citizens and individuals identified in the NIMSI database. So Uche, the floor is yours. Chibuzor, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Atik and ID4Africa community for having me here to make this presentation. My presentation is on the Nimsi Mobile App. So I'll just take you through it. This is just a graphical representation of the Nimsi Mobile App. It's just simply saying your personal identity in the palm of your hand. And a quick overview of the Nimsi Mobile App. The Nimsi Mobile App was officially launched by the president in the year 2021. And the app is designed to allow users to provision their identity or present their identity or also verify their national identification number on the go using their mobile devices. What I choose to call also bring your own device approach, just like Chibuzor also mentioned. This presupposes that it can only be used by those already assigned a national identification number. The general concept behind the app is to put power over a person's identity back in the hands of the ID holder, with the NIMSI on behalf of the federal government serving as custodian of the identity and also a regulator of the identity sector in Nigeria. And to also meet the rising challenges of data theft, data harvesting, and unauthorized access to personal identification, we also had to look at redefining the concept of user consent when it comes to identity. And that also brought about the introduction of what we call the NIN tokenization feature within the NIMSI app. How personal identity is verified on an enterprise scale was taken into consideration in the design and the revision of the tokenization feature so we can enhance security and the sanctity of the data. The tokenization of the NIN is simply just masking the national identification number so that the raw NIN is not always given out or exposed when people present themselves for service delivery, and when the merchants or the service providers have to do identity authentication or verification. So the tokenization feature simply gives the ID holder the right to issue virtual NINs to merchants or service provider who wish to verify them. The token, when it's issued, has an expiration timeline of 72 hours and is also vendor specific. And what I mean by that is that it cannot be used by any other merchant or service provider, as each merchant or entity has an enterprise code for their own transactions. So the mobile app requires that the user have a phone number and a PIN for the onboarding process. The phone number to be used is the number that is associated with the person's national identification number registration. Within the app also, as my DG also mentioned, There is a module for also linking mobile numbers with the NIN, and it allows for up to 7 mobile numbers to be linked, taking into consideration that individuals in Nigeria usually carry 2 or more mobile phones, and some also have 2 or more Wi-Fis for internet access, or may also have either other IoT devices at home. So those were the considerations for that policy to allow up to 7 mobile numbers to be linked to the NIN. The app also has a feature that allows people to also print the new improved NIN slip with a QR code. The new improved NIN slip is a pocket-sized slip that is easy to carry, can fit into your pocket, and then you can also present it at any point. If you don't want to print it, you can also provision the mobile version of the slip, and you can also present it, and the QR code can be scanned at any time. In the design of the app, we also took into consideration encryption. We encrypt the data at all times, whether at rest or in transit, to make sure that we comply with the principles of privacy by design and the data protection regulations. The privacy by design components of the app ensure that no one can verify any user's identity without the person being known to Nimsi, who will keep a copy of all the verification requests and also make that same available to the NIN holder on request. Ultimately, the mobile ID app gives power to the user to also decide what information can be displayed or seen. You can either choose the basic information or the full information. All that functionality exists within the app. We believe that the ID holder reserves the right to know how their personal information is being used. Also, we keep a log of all the verification details within the app as well. So here comes the business case for the Nimsi mobile app. What are all those things that necessitated us to look into leveraging mobile technology for our identity services? We looked at the penetration of mobile networks and the increasing number of subscribers in Nigeria. As we can see now, the mobile ecosystem has created a global digital platform for connecting people, for providing digital services, and for huge online commerce. So these are all the considerations that were made for us to leverage the mobile technology to also deliver identity services to the people. We also looked at democratization of identity. We always say that the individual owns their personal identity and their personal data. So we try to democratize that, to give them the power and for them to also give the consent when it comes to identity. We looked at identity on the go. In these days, everybody carries a mobile phone around. So we decided to leverage that so that we can provision identity on the go. So you can always have your identity anytime, anywhere. You don't have, even if you don't have the physical token, you can always go with your digital token anywhere you are. Authentication and verification as a service was also one of the factors that we considered. We wanted people to also be able to authenticate and verify identity as a service and also on the go as well. The issue of having authentication and verification agents and middlemen and accessibility of your identity as you move along was also a factor. So in a certain kind of way, the mobile app also helps with eliminating that middleman, not necessarily fully, but in a way that individuals can provision or present their identity and can also carry out the verification by themselves. The platform was also utilized to ensure that we comply with all the data privacy and data protection principles and guidelines that exist in country and also with the GDPR, including other international countries as well. And innovation for ID efficiency was also a factor for us. We wanted to innovate to make identity efficiency, effectiveness, making better user experience for all the ID holders and for the people, and also to provision so many other value-added services. Like I mentioned, the revised NIN slip is one of the value-added services that we put on the app, and also the tokenization is also another part of it. This is just a representation of the tokenization service that I mentioned. It's just a unique way for us to provision the NIN to people. It's totally opaque. The NIN holder is the exclusive issuer. It has an extensive range. Over 16 billion possible combinations can be gotten from it. And then the tokens are also encrypted. It's user-specific, merchant-specific, vendor-specific. You can use another merchant's code for your own transaction. So it's vendor-specific. It's also time-bound, that it expires after 72 hours after issuance. So these are all the features when it comes to that. So a status of the mobile app utilization, since it was launched since 2021, we've had over 16 million downloads of that mobile app. We also have over 62 million digital profiles have been created on the app, because the app allows you to create a digital profile that enables you to continue to use the app. And so far, over 162,000 improved NIN slips have been downloaded. The NIN slip, you can download as many as you want, you can cut it, you can laminate it, have as many copies as you wish anytime you do. Currently, we are on version 2.6.10 of the app, and then we're also still reviewing for newer interfaces and icons and smooth operations. We're also thinking of adding so many other future updates and functionalities within the app, like the liveliness check, the face recognition, the digital certificates, so that we can also leverage other secure elements of the devices that exist, maybe like document signing that are existing in some of the mobile devices as well. In conclusion, I'll just say that the Nimsi Mobile App is a secure alternative to enable individuals to assert their identity. So it gives you the option of your identity presentation in the digital form. And under the tokenization, you can actually generate a virtual name that a merchant can use to identify you. And also verification can be carried out on the go. ID holders can also decide what data they need to be displayed. And the statistics on all that happens within the app can be viewed by the user. And then you can see all the different history of who verified you, when they verified, the time stamp. For final thoughts, we've been receiving a lot of positive feedback from the users, and it's been very encouraging, and that is motivating us to also keep reviewing the mobile app and make it better. We've also been praised for the innovation and the ease of use. We know we're not yet there. There's so much to still be done. We'll keep innovating and keep making it more friendlier in usage. And we are also aware that awareness and sensitization is still a very huge challenge. There's so many people in Nigeria that don't even know about the mobile app or how to utilize it. So that's also a very huge challenge. Although we've done a stakeholder workshop to educate all the stakeholders on the mobile app, we still know that the general public, especially people that are within the localities, the communities, the local government area, like the creeks and all the remote areas that Chibuzo talked about, there's still a lot to be done in sensitizing and helping them. I'm sure one of the questions people will ask is, okay, the mobile app is for smartphone users. What about people that have feature phones? There's also a provision for people that have feature phones to also generate their virtual name through the mobile app, but they can do it using the USSD code. So that has been provisioned for them. And since we're in the mobile age, digital age, almost everybody does everything with their mobile devices and phone, is seen as a future for digital identification in Nigeria. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. There are lots of questions, not surprising. This is definitely very innovative. Let me just quickly ask you, were you surprised by the positive reaction and how much people wanted this app or reacted to this app?
Yes, we were surprised, even though it's been in the works for a very long time. We've been thinking about it. We've been trying to how to make it to bring it out and put all the necessary features that we think will make it a very good application. So, but we were also surprised at the reactions from the people.
Pleasantly surprised. In fact, is it clear to people and maybe the audience that what you have here is basically a dynamic alternative to your national ID smart card? Basically, you're now allowing yourself to carry with you a smart ID card, but not in the form factor of a smart ID. It's able to do a lot more than so-called smart, which is now starting to look dumb.
I'll put it this way. The smart ID card is also a physical token, and then we are now provisioning it as a digital token. So that's the way I would say it.
Excellent. So can you please do us a favor and answer the about 10 questions that have been sent your way from the floor? We won't have time. We're running out of time, so we won't have time to answer all of them. They're all excellent. So please, if somebody from Nimsi could answer those systematically, that would be great. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll definitely do that. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. This concludes this particular session or segment on the use of mobile software and mobile apps in the Nigerian experience. You could see some really interesting innovations going on. Speaking of innovation, we now have another interesting segment which focuses on the open source mobile platform MOSIP. With us here is the Chief Technology Officer of MOSIP. Ramesh, thank you for being with us. The floor is yours. You are on mute.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Atik, and thank you, ID4 Africa community, for sparing the time and giving us the opportunity to talk about what MOSIP is doing on the mobile front. From all these conversations, it is very clear that I actually don't have to spend any time on talking about the drivers, the need for mobile solutions, or why they are so important and relevant today. So I would try and spend as much time as possible on talking about what we are offering from the MOSIP side. Let me just quickly share the screen and get going. Many of you would be familiar with MOSIP. Some of you might not be. MOSIP is an open source project that is housed in the university, IIITB, and we are a not-for-profit organization, and we have been funded by donations from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, NORAD, Omidyar Network, and Tata Trusts. Our focus has been actually on building a foundational identity platform, and the objective is that this foundational identity issued by using this platform would serve as a root of trust in identity for the countries using MOSIP, and it would lead to ID-enabled transformation as well as service delivery. We have been at it for the last 3.5 years, and as part of this, we went open source, released various versions, tried field pilots, and recently we have announced our long-term support version, which basically comes with 5 years of peace of mind for countries who are adopting. And this is visibility which we always wanted to give to our adopters. And we will continue working on this. But as we continue working on it, we have looked at going beyond the basic features of the platform and offering the next level of capabilities and tools. So we have envisaged various models for authentication, ways to access service delivery, enhance privacy and security, improving the actual rollout and running of an identity system. So while all these thoughts are there, mobility has also garnered our attention and focus for the same obvious reasons that everybody's talking about. And we are spending a considerable portion of our efforts on mobile-based solutions. When we wanted to look at mobile-based solutions, we have seen plenty of solutions out there already, but we wanted to take our learning from the field and then translate that into a practical, meaningful solution. Infrastructure is a known problem. We heard about internet penetration, connectivity issues, the need for offline, and so on. We have also seen that the adoption of technology also has different shades in different parts of the world, as well as even sometimes provinces within the same country also. And the availability of uptime and support and having the personnel with the right capability to support these systems mean that the infrastructure often poses a challenge. And we cannot step back and say, step away from this problem and say, hey, look, there's no infrastructure, solutions won't work. So we wanted to consider the infrastructure problems as part of the definition of work itself. Similarly, we also have encountered demographic diversity in terms of the number of languages spoken, the education levels, tech literacy, people of all walks of life, people having physical disabilities, poor biometrics. There are innumerable characteristics on the basis of which these diversity is present. But we also recognize that apart from all these external problems, when we are building solutions, the way we build these solutions also end up excluding people. So we wanted to make sure that we don't have tunnel vision, we build for ground reality and ensure that everybody is included. This actually translated into doing workshops with various people who are working on inclusion, and then using their learning and applying many of the techniques that they have suggested as part of our design exercise. This resulted in us trying to simplify the need for many steps and loads of infrastructure for ensuring that a transaction has to happen. Right? The less that we have to do, the less people have to do, lower the friction and higher the adoption that is going to be there. And we also saw that there is a need for choice. Right? There's no one size fits everyone. And based on the diversity, there is a need for people to be able to do it in self-service mode or in assisted mode or a combination of these things. Right? So this also was factored into our design approach. We also wanted to make sure that technology itself does not create a barrier. The ability to understand concepts and usage paradigms vary from person to person. I have seen people scared of technology, not being able to use even simple features like entering a PIN in an ATM machine to draw their cash. Right? So we wanted to make sure that the way technology is used and presented, that we keep these barriers and these fears away and try to include as many people as possible. And in that process, we discovered new ways of doing things. Some of it is discovery and some of it is rediscovery, because we also see that people are familiar with existing processes and existing ways of working, and there are sufficient tools and technologies out there which can re-leverage this learning and ensure that people have a way to complete the transactions, whether it is onboarding or availing a service. We didn't want to have closed avenues like people hitting a dead end. Right? So we have opened up lots of interesting pathways to make sure that nobody is left behind. One of the big reasons for ID being brought in has been to enable access and help benefits reach people. But along with this, there is also this need to address uniqueness, ghosting problem, leakage of subsidy, and so on. Right? We have seen that features that are incorporated in order to solve these problems sometimes come in the way of actually delivering the service. So we have taken an approach where we don't want to put the onus on the end user, but on the system. So we have cut the trust burden as much as possible on the end user and are trying to put a model where the backend processes take care of addressing these, so that they do get addressed because some of them are critical, and but in a way that it doesn't burden the user. Similarly, we also wanted to make sure that when somebody is out to get a very essential critical service, that they are not hitting a dead end. We want to make sure that there are enough alternate processes and means available, either with or without external help, right? And as part of this, we have come to the realization that it is not all technology, but it is a combination of technology and the process that we employ. With these in mind, we relooked at some of the core offerings that we have. Our core offering basically has been onboarding people and issuing an ID, and subsequently using this ID in various contexts and verification of this ID for availing services, right? So we had, I would say, a fairly convoluted set of steps involved, but our learnings from the field and our experience from the Philippines, as well as Morocco rollouts, as well as the various pilots, we have seen the effect of being able to go into the field with a tablet to the residence of a person, right, and getting them on board. And we have also worked with our ecosystem to see how a full-fledged onboarding of a person can actually happen in the field. This reduces the time to actually process people and get them into the system faster. But apart from enrolling, we also wanted to look at how to fill the gap when it comes to issuing the ID, especially with uniqueness checks and all being in place. There were delays after enrollment of people getting the IDs. So we want to solve this problem also, and we have come up with some approaches where we would like to issue the ID practically real time in the field as soon as the person is enrolled, right? There are compensatory processes which would be there to ensure that the ID is not misused or the uniqueness constraints are not violated. Similarly, moving on to the verification side, we saw the availability of infrastructure and the assurance levels required were typically at odds with each other. And we wanted to solve this conundrum, make it easy. And we have taken an approach of using verifiable credentials, the standard from W3C, and then using this to allow trust and assurance in the offline world, in the sense without the need to connect to a centralized server to perform identity verification activity. There are cases where the centralized verification provides an additional level of assurance, and but there are several cases which we saw did not warrant that level of assurance, and the verifiable credentials could offer the same in the field. So what we have done is enabled peer-to-peer sharing of the verifiable credentials and identity verification on top of that. So this is our vision for both the ID issuance side and for the ID verification side. And let me share at this point a small video which showcases some of the work that we have done, work in progress. And this video will show an imaginary scenario. Here we are talking about a mother trying to register their newborn child, and as part of that, the child doesn't necessarily have an identity of its own yet, but the mother actually has to link it to her identity, so she proves her identity using the verification service. So let me just share the video and play it for you.
In this video, we'll show you how the Resident app works. A mother named Amy wants to register her newborn child and will need to share her ID to Abba, a health worker. Let's generate Amy's ID first. Let's tap Add ID, enter the UIN code, and tap Generate ID. Enter your verification code, and the app will start downloading your ID. Then tap Back Home, and you can now see the newly generated ID. Now let's share Ami's ID to Aba. On Ami's phone, let's tap Scan. This activates the camera on the phone. And on Aba's phone, let's tap Request to display the QR code. Let's scan the QR code using Ami's phone. And right away, you can see it's connected to device and waiting for ID. On Ami's phone, once it's connected, you can see the Sharing ID screen where you can view Aba's data and can also enter a reason for sharing. Let's tap Accept Request and choose ID. Here, you can see a list of possible IDs to share. Let's select Ami's ID and tap Share. On Aba's phone, you can now see incoming ID where you can view Ami's data. Let's tap Accept Request and receive ID. After sharing is complete, a success message is displayed on both phones. Now back to the home page, you can also see the history on the app. And that is all. Thanks for watching.
Thank you. Let me just get back to my presentation. I just have a couple of more slides. This is what you saw is work in progress. What we are doing right now is working on this phase 1. There will be an alpha release of what you saw in April. As part of the phase 1, we are looking at Android phone support and a wallet to store multiple credentials. So this allows a family to store the credentials of all people on a shared phone, and then subsequently a way to share these credentials to a relying party using a peer-to-peer protocol that was demonstrated in the video. That's part of the phase 1. As part of phase 2, we will be extending support to the Apple ecosystem also and include biometric verification on top of the verifiable credential using selfie authentication. In phase 3, we are actually taking the same set of features and translating them to the feature phone and making it available on the feature phone. And across all 3 phases, we are taking care of privacy and security concerns and trust on the data throughout. The same level of assurance would be available on all the platforms. The same level of feature set may not be possible on the feature phones, but we are still trying to see how we can get as many of these as possible onto the feature phones also without compromising the usability of the solution. As part of this, we have been engaging with various educational institutes for research work. This includes the Alan Turing, IIIT, where we are housed, the CMU in Africa, as well as in Pittsburgh, and the University of Philippines. And we have been doing work on encrypted biometric match on devices. Similarly, how to benchmark quality and efficacy of these various biometric modalities on these devices so that we can come with the right recommendations. Right? Voice also is something which we feel could help on feature phones and in low infrastructure environments. As I was talking about the ID fraud, we are doing anomaly detection, which can then lead to analysis and detection of fraud subsequently. Heading back to the SIM and the USSD approach to make sure that minimum viable options are available so that nobody is left behind. And we are also looking at the standards-based mechanism for the credential share that we demonstrated so that it can be universal across not just phones, but across all kinds of devices that support a variety of protocols like Bluetooth, ultrasound, and so on numerous channels. But it's not just us working. Our ecosystem, which is 50+ strong, also has been showcasing its innovation and leading the way. We have many integrated biometrics tablets, which can be used in the field, and then solar panels to support recharge of those in the field. Right? The assumption that infrastructure is not available at all is taken into account in all these cases. Right? We have unique ways of using videos and photographs, like together mode to ensure that both the service delivery person as well as the person receiving the benefit are captured together as proof of service delivery. There are ways to represent more information. There are cryptograms or QR codes that are out there which can hold more information than traditional codes. Contactless biometrics, we are seeing great strides. And we have also seen the beginning of integration of all these into standard, readily available phones, including media attestation and encryption right at the module level in the hardware. So all this is keeping us working towards delivering to all our adopters. We are very humbled by the kind of support and interest that we have received, and we hope to continue our good work and make a difference in the lives of millions of people. And
thank you, Ramesh. Thank you for this very interesting presentation. Actually, if anybody wants to join the community voice and join me and Ramesh, please raise your hand but be very pertinent to this session, and operator, bring them on. In the meantime, let's clarify something that seems to be still causing confusion. People are asking, is there a cost to MOSIP, and then who's responsible for paying the ongoing development cost?
Right. We are open source, but that doesn't necessarily mean there are no costs attached. We as MOSIP do not charge anything to the adopters. In fact, we provide free of cost training, technical advisory, plus ongoing support. The 5-year support that we talked about is actually free support on our open source platform. In addition to this, where there are low capacity countries, we also get into additional agreements with them to extend more support free of cost. Okay, this has been our model. However, an actual implementation requires hardware integration, configuration of the environments, support, grievance, and training, and so on. Right? All these costs are to be borne by the ecosystem.
Okay, Ramesh, your list of things and innovations that you've put out there includes things that really are going to require R&D. It's not just development related to the development of an open source, because some of these things have not yet been validated or even solved, especially when it comes to building QR codes on feature phones, as we're going to see in the next episode, next segment. So how do you manage to do open source development while at the same time you need R&D? Where is the R&D coming from?
See, the R&D is also coming from other universities. We ourselves are a university project, and the largest of various funders and a push towards research from the open source side is also happening. And this is in construction. I mean, this is in addition to the actual creation of platforms, because we recognize the need to have research backing this. There are also many what I would call royalty-free or patent-free technologies that are coming from the private sector, which also are, I think, going to play critical roles in making sure vendor lock-in free solutions are going to be available with state-of-the-art technology.
So if a country, just final question, if a country wants to experiment with the adoption of MOSIP as a platform for their identity management needs, what are the steps to do so? This is not something they can call up and buy on the market. So how is it available?
Yeah, today it's not that, but we are trying to build a marketplace where it would be as easy as that, but it's still a journey. At present, we have a dissemination team which actually works with interested countries and helps them undertake small pilots, which allow them to learn what they need actually for their rollout, and also get a taste of what's possible through MOSIP. We're also having physical MOSIP experience centers being set up. The first one is already available in Bangalore, and that's also another way of trying to get a taste of what's possible. And we are trying to set get this setup expanded across the globe too.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you, Ramesh, for this. We ran out of time. I'm sure we will be hearing from you again in the future. Hopefully, we'll see you also in the Marrakesh physical meeting where you can give more updates on what's going on. Thank you so much. Operator, let us prepare the segment 4. Here, speaking of R&D, we are basically have a very, very interesting segment, very different than anything we've done before. We basically asked some researchers and innovators and thought leaders, we asked them a basic question. Can a basic phone basically be used to assert identity? So we want to see, it's called how low can you go? And understand once we hit bottom, we're going to go back up and sort of build in terms of the features, price, and capabilities. So we're going to go through sort of a one-on-one conversations, starting with Chris. Then I'm going to go to Christian Kasari. Then I'm going to go to Taron. And then I'm going to end with Sebastian. So each one of them is going to answer essentially through this conversation with me the very basic question: can you basically, what can you do with a basic phone in order to manage identity? So Chris, you will guide us through a very brief presentation just to orient us what it means to have a SIM-based identity assertion. So maybe you can put up your slides and then we can talk through them.
Okay, thanks.
And by the way, we are going to have a demo in this session, so stick around. It's going to be interesting. So Chris, please.
Well, perhaps I should start with a demo.
Okay.
I can if you like.
Okay.
Just because it's probably the thing that can, is most easily understood. So this shows not the very lowest end phones, but actually a KaiOS handset, displaying a QR code with a JSON with a kind of standard payload in it from the SIM. So this is this actual code that the pixels there are generated on the SIM card. To kind of go back to your question of, because you described it as sort of a like a spectrum, right? So what is a basic phone? I guess is the first thing we can ask. And I'm getting some feedback, by the way. Okay.
We hear you okay. We hear you okay.
Perfect. Right. Okay. So what is a basic phone? And we spent a lot of time kind of starting with the most basic handsets. So something really with just a screen and a keypad and a speaker and a modem. And certainly what we aimed to do from there was get a QR code on the screen. What we did along the way was manage offline authentication and identity options on the lowest end phones. So I think Ramesh mentioned offline authentication, is really important for dealing with the different landscapes that we have and the kind of real world conditions. And so we can do things like display virtual identities, which Chenna also mentioned. So we can have the same kind of capabilities as are in the NIMC app on a SIM card. But all of these are through a kind of text interface. Displaying QR codes is something that's possible with vendor support. And it would be possible on a $5 phone if vendors chose to implement it. But on kind of current hardware, on what's out there today, it's not sufficiently well implemented that you can guarantee it and do it at a kind of national scale.
Chris, you would talk about vendors. You mean the OEM, the manufacturers of handsets?
The manufacturers of handsets, yeah. So effectively, how this works is all of these standards are specified by Etsy mostly, and they describe how the SIM card is able to communicate with the phone. And this can do things like display text on the screen of the phone or display a QR code. But the features that enable displaying a QR code on the screen of a phone are optional. And so not all vendors have chosen to implement them. And so it's difficult to say with existing handsets how many of them will support this kind of thing.
Do you think if we created a compelling application, such as basically the ability to carry your ID on a SIM card, that the handset manufacturers, I'll ask that to Sebastian at the end, but keep that in mind. I mean, it's okay. Maybe they needed a motivation. And so maybe the idea that the proof of concept that you can actually carry a QR code and on a SIM card is actually very promising. So then the question is, will the handset manufacturers support it? And that becomes, will they make money from it? That means it's their demand. So tell us about a world, ideal world, where if they listen to us and they really supported these features, can we carry an identity on a SIM card, a credential identity?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I did realize I wasn't sharing. I wasn't showing my screen, was I, when I said I'd show you a demo?
Yeah, you're not showing anything.
So nobody's seen any slides. I do apologize. Right. So there were some slides when I was talking then, but I can go back through them. To answer your question directly, yes, if OEMs and handset manufacturers were to support actually what's already an optional part of these standards for SIM cards and for mobile handsets, then we can certainly display, QR codes and icons on the screens of phones, and of course that can be used to communicate identity information. And there's a compelling case.
This would be a QVGA phone, because anything lower than that, I don't see how you can get the density of the pixels, no?
Yeah, so you can, this phone pictured here, I think the resolution is 128 by 128 pixels.
Okay.
There is enough in there for us to display a digitally signed a simple claim, such as a virtual ID. So think like an identity number, something like that. Mm-hmm. But there's not enough pixels, you're right, for a full verifiable credential. So a full verifiable credential, I'll skip all the details, but it's something like you see on the right of this slide. So there's a lot of additional information in there that would overwhelm a basic VGA screen.
Basic VGA screen, okay. So you're mentioning something about a demo. Are you able to demo something?
Yeah. Okay. So this is a KaiOS handset, and because a KaiOS handset isn't right at the bottom, it's got more flexibility. And I should say we've made some small changes for the purposes of the demo as well. So this is more of a proof of concept. Okay. But a QR code here is generated, stored, effectively managed on the SIM card as a secure identity wallet, and then it's displayed on the screen. Here not containing actual identity information, but just to prove the concept that it is possible. And this is not using even an app. This is just using the standard, what's called SIM Toolkit API for communicating from the SIM to the handset.
Right, but this can work offline because you're carrying it in the secure portion of the SIM, so you don't need to be connected.
Exactly, yeah. And it also tolerates kind of intermittent connectivity really well too.
Someone is asking, does this work with an eSIM? I'm not sure I understand the question, but maybe you can answer it. I mean,
yeah,
the low end. Go ahead.
So if I understand correctly, the eSIM is the kind of integrated virtual SIM, and it's
right.
I would say that the answer is yes, but I would also say that to my awareness at the moment, I've only seen eSIMs on high-end phones.
Right, exactly.
So,
exactly.
Yeah, so we're not necessarily too concerned with them. And I think we'll see from some of the other panelists, actually, one of the things we're very interested in is using overlay SIMs as a way of importing this capability onto people's existing SIM cards.
Okay, so in your perspective, is if we are to carry a verifiable credential, we really can't go all the way down to the basic phone or the feature phone and have an offline capability riding on the SIM.
So I don't believe it's so yeah, so particularly with your condition of it being offline.
Right.
So if you stipulate, can we do offline verifiable credentials on the very lowest end handset? So we'd answer no.
Right. Okay, so pause on that. Christian, now we're going to relax a little bit the condition of being offline. We want to understand your concept of how you think we can get it all the way down to the basic phone, just the SIM, but with one condition, that it has to be online, right?
That's right, exactly. Maybe first the explanation, it's two of us, so that's Simi as well, it's our CTO, so I'm not so in this deep tech, that's why I get some support.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe where do we come from? We come from we do have a digital wallet solution for smartphones. Then in Africa, the smartphone rate is a lot lower than in Europe. So that's why we thought, okay, what can we do with feature phones? And then we tried to really get a solution without including the SIM, without including the operators, et cetera, and we were facing that USSD would be an option. So in a nutshell, very basic. You get provided a token from the USSD solution. Then you get a token. This token you can verbally communicate to, for example, a policeman or a system or whatever, and then he can get all the data from your ID out of the backend system from there. But you need a connection, of course. But as a person, I just need a feature phone. That's it.
Okay, so how does it work? I've got my feature phone. I'm supposed to connect to a server by sending it SMS.
Exactly.
Okay, and that SMS initiates a session. The session starts, and will they send me back like a one-time password? Is it what it would be?
They will send me they say hello, more or less. I have to authorize myself with, for example, a PIN or whatever. And then I get a token, which is valid for, say, 30 seconds, 1 minute, whatever.
Right.
And then I can communicate this token, or I can type this token into a web page or whatever.
Okay, so basically the token, we've been used to this in the high-end stuff where it's out-of-channel verification when we are on a website and they send us to a mobile number and SMS. So it's essentially, you're taking that concept all the way down to the low basic phones, and you're basically saying, if you want to, let's say you are in a program for social protection or for money, giving people access to cash in a field, something, if you are able to send an SMS, if you're in a place where you're able to send an SMS, you're able to authenticate somebody who has the rightful ownership of this phone, and therefore they may be able to be verified, but the device that verifies them would have to be connected to the internet.
That's right.
Okay, so Dr. Hicks, how do you see that model when now we're allowing you to come up with a connectivity? How does that change your picture?
I mean, I agree with what's been said. We've I kind of demoed similar things. I mean, I'm actually, and perhaps I don't understand the model correctly. So I think you can actually have the handset offline, but that the verify needs to be online.
How do you have the handset offline?
Also, in the same way as, if you remember when you used to sign into your online banking, you'd plug it into a little card reader, yes, and it would give you a number back. So that thing was never connected. It was never connected to the internet. It's a cryptographic counter, and so you can do that offline on the handset. Absolutely. And
you can build it on the SIM, that counter.
Yep. And even the standard that specifies how to do that counting explicitly mentions SIM cards as a kind of viable platform.
Okay, Unix team, how do you see that? Is that concept you think would enhance the range of what can be done with this? You're basically, instead of having an SMS, you're able to use a counter. It will be a menu-based app that will be activated and basically give me the next code.
I think this would be very possible. One thing I think, if I understand the solution correctly, is that I need some kind of constant identifier that I also have to give to the other side, so that they can make the match if this is really my number, because the number that is generated by the counter is not per se unique at that point of time. So there could be multiple identities with the same number at one point in time. So I think that is something we have to bear in mind, and this is one part that we always try to avoid, at least in Europe, to have some kind of static identifier because of privacy issues. That is something that we have to discuss if in this case it's really a problem or not.
Okay, so but if we're living in a world where I mean, can you imagine a situation where we are in an environment where an SMS cannot go through, but an internet will go through? I mean, what is? Let's look at the operational environment. We are somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and we want to give aid and social protection aid, etc., but we want to give it to verified identity. So I could imagine that an SMS, unless the SMS costs a lot to the person, would make sense in that location, no?
If an SMS is possible at the point,
yeah, because in any case, the agent who's going to be carrying the authenticating device has to have access to the internet somehow, right? Otherwise, the whole thing will fail. So I cannot imagine a situation where, because the SMS channel is much more ubiquitous than even GSM. So in a way, the concept of offline, while Dr. Hicks, you're correct, the concept offline makes utilization of this cryptographic counter in an operational environment. I think an online, meaning an SMS connected channel, still makes sense, because you still have to verify the person.
Yes.
And so the answer is yes. It's not as elegant as a QR code, but we can go through and basically somebody can assert their identity by sending an SMS to a server, special number run by the program, and that program initiates a response, and that person enters their PIN, and that then recovers some sort of a token. And the token could be what, 8 digits, 10 digits, whatever you want, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And then I present my token to the program officer, who will then enter that token into their system, and then will recover my identity.
Exactly.
I summarized it correctly. Okay, so anybody wants to join this conversation, please join us. If this is an interesting discussion for you, please join us. I actually want to up the ante a little bit. And now, instead of just looking at the SIM, pure basic SIM channel, Taron, you have something that goes beyond the SIM, doesn't go too much more beyond the SIM. It is something that's called the SIM overlay. So maybe you can explain to our audience what the SIM overlay is about, and explain to us how would be, through demonstrations if possible, how would be an identity assertion and authentication take place using SIM overlay.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Attic, and everyone at ID for Africa. It's been an amazing session, and the way the evolution of the problem statements, the solutions, and now ultimately the hardware. So I come from a hardware background, integrating mobile services, secure transactions, secure ID onto a small chip called a SIM overlay. Now, if you see my screen over here, if you can see it, I have a small chip over here, which is like, which if you see here, is like a small SIM card, you know, and you pick it up. It's a very thin film chip.
Mm-hmm.
The total thickness is less than 0.2 millimeters. And there's a small chip, a wafer inside, which basically is, if you see it over here, there's a small wafer inside over there. This wafer is actually what you have on the ATM cards. You know, you have a small metal piece on the ATM card, which is the same chip over there, except a higher memory. So higher memory with a secure element, secure cryptos, random number generator, it is certified for common criteria and everything what is required for payments. What we do in this case is when we have this overlay with us, we can mount this overlay onto a SIM card. I'll show it to you over here. This is a regular Airtel SIM card in India we have used. And put this overlay, the self-adhesive chip, over the SIM card. And this now can go into any phone, be it a smartphone, Android, Apple, or even a basic feature phones. Like I have two basic feature phones over here for the demo today. What it does is, it provides a secure element to a phone. And I'm going to drop a small bomb for you over here. Mobile phones were designed only for voice and messaging, not for secure transactions. There's nothing as a secure element in a phone, which is available for third parties to use. You know, Android 7.0 and above has a degree of a secure, environment in the OS. But again, an OS is as strong as the foundations of the OS. So in certain phones, it's a very strong OS with very strong upgrades. But in say 50% of the phones which come from local Chinese manufacturers, and OS is the most porous environment in a phone. Through the OS, I can do what I want in the phone. I can read your credentials, I can read your pins, I can go and hack into any app I want. So this basically partitions off the OS layer from any secure credentials you want to host. Now, when you put this into a phone, I'm showing you two phones over here. One is a very, very basic phone, which is we call the 1.5 or the 1.8 inch feature phone. This is a slightly bigger phone, which is a 2.5 or a 2.8 inch feature phone, but both are feature phones. No data, no internet, only SMS and USSD is available on these phones. Now, when I put this overlay chip, the advantage here is that this chip is independent of your SIM provider. It is independent of your network provider, independent of the device OS. Everything is totally independent of this chip. It gives you an environment over here. Like again, we said in the SIM toolkit menu. Put this slide a little here. So we have, in the SIM toolkit menu, we have our application over here, which says I put my login pin, and I open a whole menu over here for. Can you read it over here?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wallets, top up, bill payments, settings, and you can host secure credentials in this chip, independent of the telco or the network provider or the handset vendor or the SIM provider. What this chip enables is a secure issuance. I have a small screenshot where I can show how the issuance is done. But basically we validate against, as you know, in the previous sessions we've had, the NIN to be validated. You can have a secure credentials as MOSIP has done. Once you do the validation of a secure credentials, you can map the SIM overlay number. Like if you see every overlay has a number over here, serial number over here. This is unique to every chip, internally and externally, just like an ATM card. On the ATM card, you have one number on the card, but that maps onto an internal number in the chip, which you can't change. So once you map this over chip number and your mobile number to the NIN, which has been everywhere, been adopted, you bind the chip to your mobile number and to the NIN. And for further more secure binding, we can also then install a token in the chip over the air, post-validation. Now, once a token is installed, a token can have at the back end multiple validation credentials. It could have your national ID mapped to it, it could have a passport mapped to it, it could have a social security number mapped to it. You can have multiple points mapped to that small 10-digit alphanumeric token, or can be a 12-digit alphanumeric token. What happens when this subsequently is, you can use this for digital certificates. I can pre-install a bunch of certificates in every chip, unactivated, but when the token comes in the chip, I can activate that token and map it to the NIN of the customer or the subscriber. Now there you have a very strong binding done. Advantage here then is you can use this chipset to validate transactions, to validate cryptograms, to validate digital currencies, and a lot more than this. Now let me show you what happens over here. Once I say I want to do a transaction, our most common process for a validation is an OTP, one-time password comes in the phone as an SMS. In my opinion, an OTP is the most unsecured validation because in an Android phone, you can write an app to read all the SMS messages coming in. And you can read in SMS messages, the moment it says OTP it finds the word OTP, it reads the number behind it, and in the app itself, transfers the OTP to a third party. So third party then can use the OTP for transactions. And in India, it's a very common phenomenon, very, very common phenomenon, OTP hijacking as we call it. But in the chip, what happens is it basically works on SMS or USSD or even data. But in SMS, all messages coming into the chip don't come in the inbox. All messages going out from the chip don't go in the inbox. They remain in the overlay very, very securely. And also, because we have a cryptogram and the random number generation capability in the chip, we can use public keys and private keys for encryption. Can I just show a screen of the encryption on a chip? Heidi, can I just share my screen?
Yeah, share your screen.
I have it opened up already. Yeah. So now if you can see my screen, I have, column B, which is an actual encrypted string from the chip.
Mm-hmm.
It's completely junk for anybody. Mm-hmm. But after decrypting with the public and the private keys, it means something to the system. So this is the level of encryption you can put together in the chip.
Now, Taram, let's talk about how you operationalize this. I'm an identity authority, or I am a health provider for a government or a social protection agency that wants to help people. Instead of giving them ID cards to join the program, you're suggesting we give them SIM overlays. And are you saying those SIM overlays are so intuitive that somebody who is not digitally savvy could follow the instructions and add the SIM overlay to their card and prepare their mobile device?
Okay, I would not say it's that easy because it needs a bit of practice. So our recommendation is that, we have the agents who do our identification onboarding. Like, MOSIP said we have, somewhere, and NINC said they have something in 9,000 in Africa in the country A, country B, country C. We can easily train them. It takes about 30 seconds or 40 seconds to install an overlay on a SIM card. And
now talk about in reality, not a theoretical issue. You're deploying it in India in banking sector. Is that correct?
Yes.
Tarun,
so in the banking sector, yeah. Okay. So in the banking sector, we are deploying it in the banking sector. And in India, we have a unique ID called the Aadhaar, which is basically a biometric of your iris scan. So the government now allows you to map this ID with your Aadhaar number. Now, I don't know how many of you are aware of the Aadhaar number.
A lot of people. No, a lot of people. Trust me. So anyway, this is
so you map it on the Aadhaar number, and they give you a token back.
Right.
So that token we install on the chip. And now this chip is bound to your Aadhaar number, bound to your mobile number, and bound to your ID, which is then good for your UPI, is good for opening a bank account, and good for anything.
So basically, through the SIM overlay, you're allowing essentially millions of people who use basically feature phones to add the payment and banking functionality linked to Aadhaar via the SIM overlay.
Perfect. True. Perfectly right.
Can you demonstrate an application?
So I have it done over here. Can I share a video on the other screen?
Yes, demonstrate the application where somebody is being authenticated to get access to a service or a benefit. You have a reader. What is that reader? NFC reader, or is it? How does the channel communicate with the cell phone?
Okay, so I have two demos over here, Dr. Attic. A is the demo for an e-voucher, which is now coming up very popular in India, or SMS. But we'll do that later. My first demo is going to be on this transaction on a payment service over here.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it quickly because we're running out of time. So it'll be good to explain.
So I want to transfer money from my bank account to a second bank account. I come into fund transfer. Can you see it? Is it visible on the screen here?
No, we don't see it. Operator, remove the spotlight, perhaps.
So basically what we do is that on the menu, just give me 10 seconds. Coming on.
In the meantime, Christian, could you please answer some of the questions that are coming in from the audience? They're very interested in the SIM channel. If you're able to answer them on the chat, on the Q&A, that would be helpful. And then we wrap up with Tarun, who's basically explaining that basically national IDs should be thought of as SIM overlays because they can give you a secure element that interfaces directly with your cell phone and therefore empower your cell phone not only to become your communication device, but your national ID. But that means there's a cost associated with it, and there is an intervention, etc. Tarun, show us the reader for this.
Yeah. So let me show you the menu on the phone. SIM.
Okay.
The SIM for a banking transaction or for a payment transaction. So here we have. I say go into banking, and I say do a fund transfer. I can do it using pay from is UPI. Ouch. Okay, let me use this.
Yeah, that's fine. UPI is the exchange, payment exchange in India.
Sorry for the. Yeah.
Okay.
So I say from UPI, and I can again pay to a second UPI account in the chipset. Okay. The menu is there available, and I put his new UPI number. I just put for the demo sake, some number over here, and I say okay. 8.
Yeah.
And I say the amount, I say 500 rupees. I say, okay. It gives me a preview and I say, okay. I enter the UPI pin. For the demo, I just use 1, 2, 3, 4. And I say, okay.
But Taran, how different is this from M-Pesa? Using the payment? What's the difference here? I mean, we could do that with M-Pesa.
M-Pesa is like an M-Pesa, but M-Pesa was driven by Safaricom as a telecom provider.
Okay, so this you don't need the telecom provider to be involved. Okay.
So driven by the bank, can be driven by the national ID provider, can be driven by anybody.
So this is an important point, that it basically, it gives you the ability to offer other services without the intervention of the mobile network operator. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
The second thing I'd like to present to you is on
show the reader, show one of the readers. I want to understand more. What is the reader reading? Because if your device does not have NFC, how is it reading?
So this is a reader which is done by us basically to read SMS text of any phone.
Hold it up.
So here, you can see it here. It's a small, it's about 3 inches by 4 inches or 4 inches by 5 inches.
We don't see it, Tar. We don't see it. Hold it up.
Okay, let me bring it on this screen here then.
Right. Okay, so this is a reader that can read. I put my SMS, which is coded, on it, and it reads it.
Yes.
It does an OCR reading?
It does OCR, but on a phone which is a 1.5, on these phones also, which is a 1.5 and 1.8 inch phone.
Okay.
So OCR phones is impossible.
Okay, so yeah, it's a big challenge. So you don't use any other channel, no NFCs, just optical reading from an SMS message that is presumably my token, my voucher.
Yes.
Okay. I think Taran, I mean, this is very fascinating, but unfortunately, I'm afraid we're running out of time. I think you picked the interest. You picked the interest of the crowds. You definitely piqued my interest. I think it's something worthy exploration. Let's go back to the panel. So going back to Dr. Hicks and Christian, how do you see the SIM overlay technology playing a role in your, do you think it's an overkill? Do you think it's an alternative direction, or what role do you see the SIM overlay? First of all, I assume you're familiar with the SIM overlays and the role. So is there any comments and that you can make in the transparent manner? I mean, this is not to judge or to promote. I just want to understand, what do you think of SIM overlays as a potential credential management platform?
Yeah. I think that the SIM overlay can help us everywhere, that the SIM card, where the possibilities of a SIM card end. So in everywhere which has to do with storage space, with I think, I don't know the exact SIM overlay technology or chip capabilities, but most probably things like cryptographic primitives and things like that, which we cannot get from a SIM card. A SIM overlay would of course help us. I think there were some very interesting questions in the chat about okay, what about losing SIM card, losing the phone, losing the SIM overlay? But I think that's the same problems with the SIM card itself. So yeah, what if we lose the SIM card? If we lose the phone? So that is always not an easy question to answer in all mobile phone identity solutions. What do we do if the phone's lost? And it's getting even harder with verifiable credentials, with self-sovereign identity, because a lot more anchors on the phone or on the SIM card or wherever the cryptographic material is stored. So I think, yeah, the SIM overlay can add benefit to every solution that is presented here today.
It's a promising direction to explore. Dr. Hicks, do you have anything to add to that before I move to Sebastian?
I would only echo agreement. I think it's extremely important and quite well field tested as well. So I think M-Pesa in Kenya had tremendous success using overlay SIMs, and they overcome a number of kind of distribution problems with using existing SIMs.
Okay, so that's definitely an area of research that we would hope that we would explore. Let me go, Sebastian, you've been patiently listening to all this conversation. We appreciate your patience, but everybody is talking about KaiOS in the world of development. Everybody's basically saying, well, there is something very promising in the affordability world. We don't have to go to the full expense of a very smartphone, but we don't have to put up entirely with the low and basic phone if we are to serve the poor and that need to be served in the development context. So introduce our audience. What is the KaiOS enabled phones? Where are they? What is the objective? And speak a little bit about how they have been entering the market in the world.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation to this panel. It's really interesting. I'm not an expert on identity, so I've learned a lot during this day. KaiOS basically is addressing the space between the basic phone, so the 2G phone, and the smartphone. So it's really a new space that we have created a couple of years ago. It started in India, actually, with Jio, with our partner Jio. And the idea was basically that smartphones are not affordable. There's an affordability issue for a big portion of the population, and I will come back on that after. And basic phones do not allow you to have access to all the modern internet services and so on. So KaiOS, the mission and the purpose of the operating system is to create a phone which is in between, taking the best of the two worlds. Basically, the battery life, the affordability, the robustness of a feature phone, of a basic phone, and the access to internet and applications, plus all the modern technologies like LTE, Wi-Fi, GPS of a smartphone.
And so help the audience understand. You said it's positioned in between. What are we talking about? A $20 phone, $30 phone, or $5 phone? Where is this phone?
Yeah, so maybe let me take a step back here and talk about the affordability challenge and how it impacts the digital divide, but also we'll see the identity divide and the financial divide. So if you look at the situation today in the world, basically there's 1 billion people who don't have an identity proof. There's 1.7 billion people who don't have a bank account, and there's roughly 3.5 billion people who don't have access to internet. These three numbers are very correlated. And if you look at where this happened, it's 80% between African continent and South Asia. It's concerning the same countries. You can see prevalence of gender inequality also in the three numbers, actually. And so what we believe is that the affordability challenge actually is what we need to address that will help us to actually address these three divides. And just let me give you, to answer precisely to your question. Today, there are studies, good studies from GSMA and from A4AI that show that if you want to consider a smartphone, the most entry smartphone affordable, you need to have around $14 of daily disposable income. But when you look at the actual disposable income available for the global population, more than half of the global population lives on less than $10. So it means these smartphones are basically not affordable for still today for a very large population. And just look at numbers. I was looking at IDC numbers for 2021. 54% of the mobile phone were feature phone shipped to the new phone shipped to the market were feature phone still last year. And so what we want to do, basically, today you have a gap, and I can maybe share just one simple slide.
Yeah,
explain that. So can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
So basically, a voice phone today costs around $7 to $8, and I'm talking about the transfer price from the manufacturer to the distributor. I'm not talking about the retail price in the market, but this is roughly the price where we are. The very entry Android Go phone in 4G costs around $45, the cheapest model. And so there's a gap, a huge gap actually between these two spaces. And then you go up with Android and iOS. And with iOS, basically we try to address this market or this space in between. So we try to bring some of the internet services with a form factor which is very close to a feature phone. And so we have products that could go from $14, $15 to $25. So half the price or less than half the price of a smartphone.
And now you are an operating system. You don't manufacture phones. So how do you get the phones in the hands of the people that need them, the poor in Africa, the people who are not earning enough to pay for a smartphone? How does the go-to-market strategy for empowering the access to these phones?
So well, it's a good question, and actually it's a challenge at the same time. I can tell you how we've done it to date, and I can tell you how we plan to do it in the future. To date, actually, we work very closely with mobile operators. So the mobile operator have a strong interest to move 2G users to 4G, because basically they can get return on investment on their infrastructure investment. They can get lower operation cost on 4G, even for voice, and on 2G. They can get higher ARPU, the revenue, the average revenue per user per month. We see, for example, a 2G user move to 4G, the ARPU can be multiplied by 2 or to 4. It depends on the country and the configuration. So basically, they have a strong motivation to subsidize the phone and to get more of these 4G phones onto the market. Now, the challenge and our strategy beyond this work we do with the operator is to bring that to the open market. Today, in Africa, for example, 90% of the phones are sold in open market. And open market means small retail store. It can be chain, but it can be very small retail store. It can be informal store as well, informal shops. And so the challenge in this informal market or this open market is that basically you get very less influence from the mobile operator onto the sales, onto the models which are sold. Basically, brands decide what they want to bring to the market, and everything is around the consumer needs, which means that, for example, the consumer does not care a phone is 2G or 4G. It does not matter. It does not care if there is a security enabled on the phone or not, but he will care about the screen size. He will care about the camera resolution, about the user space and the battery size. So basically, the decision making into the store is mostly based on these elements rather than whether the phone is capable to support a security feature for identity, for example. And so what we are changing for this year, what we will do this year, is we will basically work with a model of financing and subsidies to bring 4G phones at the price of 2G. So upfront will be exactly the same price as a 2G phone. There will be no like expensive installment plan or whatever. It will be very simple, but we will basically bring 4G at the price of 2G into this open market.
Very interesting. I understand there have been, in fact, at least 2 proofs of concepts about building biometrics into Kai phones. Can you say anything about that? Face, for example.
Yeah. So we had and it's proof of concept. So it's not commercial today, but we have been working on in the launch we did in India, for example. We have been working on some facial recognition features with IDEMIA. We have been working on the payment capability and the getting certification for the device to actually accept payment and to have all the credentials to do so. We've worked with Turing Institute also on this ID card, the QR code, and but this is something we want to do more. We had limited resource for that to date, but it's something we want to invest on with partners because we believe that the financing program, basically financial inclusion, goes hand in hand with the identity inclusion.
Yep.
So we believe all these issues need to be solved together, and basically we are looking for partnership onto this ID inclusion.
Thank you. So just let me close because we've ran out of time. Actually, since I've been looking into this problem, what I've learned from all of you who've educated me and others who've participated behind the scenes is that there is no silver bullet. At the end of the day, in order to achieve the digital inclusion, we're going to need variety of solutions. Some are more adapted to the environment that we are in than others. It's going to be an ecosystem, a portfolio of solutions. I don't believe one solution will be the killer that will replace everything else. But we need diversity because the world's problems are very diverse and the world's exclusionary problems are very diverse. And as a consequence, it's very important that we work on enabling the SIM, enabling the USSD, enabling the overlays, enabling the 4G to become 2G on the Kai OS affordability scale, building biometrics, building QR codes, basically helping as the SIM is connected to the NIN, maybe now we have new business models that allow the mobile network operators to offer a device with a contract over 2 years, which you pay as you go, because now your identity is fixed. Linking the handset to a physical asset, such as your home, your solar, or your identity becomes basically a collateral that allows the mobile network operators to explore. But whatever it is, we as a community, we need to work together to bring in access to telephony and the internet to everyone, because 3.5 billion people being excluded, to me, that's even worse than when we talk about people not having identity. At this point in time, they're very related. But to imagine that 3.5 billion people don't have access to information, don't have access to basically the knowledge that they need to participate in an effective modern society, that is a digital divide that is unacceptable. And I think together, we are going to need to work to find heterogeneous solutions and an ecosystem where different solutions are going to be adapted to different needs. So we ran out of time. I thank you very much for your contribution. It's been very exciting, at least to me. I hope the audience has found it exciting. I hope the panelists as well. This saga will not end here. We will continue on April 13 with the third part, where we're going to focus on mobile biometrics, and also we're going to focus on enabling use cases. So stick around and come back to this session. Thank you everyone, and stay safe, and see you on April 13.